They asked me to ask you because you fit the description. They want to see you go law.
All just said he's right there.
Yeah.
Comes barreling in that door, he's gonna see 3 places. That'd be fun.
Now all of a sudden I can't log in.
Sharon, is there a motion list?
If you go down to the internet.
I already.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call the Tuesday, April 12th, 2022 regular. Do we have any revisions or approval of the agenda? Entertain that motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Dr. Pomponio.
Support.
To approve it as presented, supported by Dr. Green, or Mr. Green, sorry. By Mr. Green.
You don't want me doing surgery on nobody.
Supported by Mr. Green. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have an agenda, and item E is presentations. So we have the board policy package, first reading.
Yes, we have before you the outcome of our last policy committee meeting. We had several items that we'd like for the board to consider. This is a first read, so this will come back to the board for approval at its next meeting. The very first one has to do with code of conduct language. As you're aware, the district has been very aggressively handling situations when students make threats against our school community, and we wanted to make sure that the language of our board policy aligned with how we've been treating these and how the prosecutor has asked that we treat those as well. So we do have current code of conduct language that talks about bomb threats or similar threats. The policy committee did suggest that it eliminate the last sentence of that particular code of conduct language to include, that requires the school board to identify all the different types of behavior for which this might happen. One thing that we've noticed through this process is there is no rhyme or reason in how that threat may come, and it comes many different ways. And so the policy committee suggested eliminating that sentence so that it's handled on a case-by-case basis at the schools. The second suggestion, or at least recommendation, is to change the grading scale at Anderson High School. So currently, we have a 4-point weighted scale for grades, where an A will get 4 points, a B will get 3, a C will get 2, and a D will get 1, and an E will get no points. We'd like to change that so that we have a 5-point grading scale, so that our AP classes that students take are weighted 5 points for an A, 4 points for a B, 3 points for a C, 2 points for a D, and no points for an E. This, we think, would incentivize more students to take the challenging course without believing that it may be to their detriment if they don't manage to get the A at the end. So we really want to promote classes that are have high rigor and high expectations for kids, and we want them to take those risks. So we'd like to do that. This year it would just be for the AP courses. At the end of next year, we'd like to see a complement of honors classes that will also, if AP classes are not available in a particular area, an honors class would also provide that kind of structure. We don't have that in place yet for the next year, but we can do the 5-point grading scale. We think that that's a really strong addition. The last is related to board policy for board members. One of those proposes that compensation, board members, that compensation language is discussed and determined by the board annually, that there is a professional development language in the board policy. This was language that was in Neola before the district moved to its new policy affiliate, Miller Canfield. So This professional development would just basically say that Board of Education may maintain membership in National School Boards Associations, Michigan Association of School Boards, and take part in activities. Board members would also be able to maintain educational memberships in other professional organizations, which the board finds to be of benefit, and materials or other benefits of these memberships are distributed and used to the best advantage of the board. That would be the language available in professional development. School board conferences, conventions, and workshops. Similarly, the Board of Education would recognize its value and encourage participation, and then expect board members to report back to the board after a conference. Travel expenses, of course, would be limited to the board member, and expenses would be contained within budgetary limits. Finally, the Board of Professional Development accounts would be available for board members for these trainings and supplemental materials. Other school board training would be provided with board approval, and if any books or materials purchased separate from these conferences or trainings would be the property of the school district and cataloged in a board resource library for use after use or when the board member separates from service. And then D, it simply adds professional development budget to the annual organizational structure.
Any questions for staff on the proposed language for the board policy?
I had a question about the grading scale.
Yes,
When will this be going into effect?
22-23 school year.
Okay, so next year? So what about the children who already have, like the sophomores who've taken an AP class, that won't be weighted until 2023? So if they take any more AP classes, so,
Right, it would be moving forward at
Okay.
this point.
okay, so the ones that they've already had, they don't get any extra credit
Right.
for? And
Correct.
will that affect their standing at all, possibly? Like if they took 2 AP classes and passed them, now they don't have as many AP options to take in the future. Will, just,
I'm going to table that for
Okay.
people who are more closely involved on that, and we'll raise that as a matter of discussion on how
Okay.
it's applied.
and how will this affect like colleges, as far as like, I know other school districts have a weighted scale, do,
In fact, most, if not all, of the downriver areas do have that, schools. Colleges already understand that schools that feed students into the college system have varying grading scales, and they do their own analysis of the transcripts of students that come from other schools, and they determine, basically they neutralize any of what they consider to be inflation, to make sure that students are treated similarly when they come in. But certainly, the GPA piece still is an advantage.
and this is to enhance or bolster up and say, to have our children take more AP classes
this
and
is-
stuff, and instead of taking the safe route,
Right,
to
Correct.
maintain at 4.0, you have a chance to earn
Correct.
more than that if you, okay.
Any other questions for staff? So I think this is our opportunity as a board to kind of discuss this as a whole. I know it went to the committee, came from the committee, but this is really our first opportunity to take a look at it and see it. So does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns? Go ahead.
I just have a comment that with the language in the conduct for bomb threats, that the word shall is meaning impending, so that students should be aware that this is something that we have no tolerance for. So it's important to understand that they're regularly, like, understanding what's happening, and that something very simple can turn out to be an expulsion. So that shall is an impending suspension or expulsion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just one, it comes under it's on the last page, under the board professional development accounts. Probably just a couple of words to add. We go to the last sentence, or almost the last sentence, where it says that the other school board training may be provided with board approval. Then it says books and materials purchased through this fund. So I want to imply, I think it wasn't kind of meant, but maybe not written, that the books and the materials should also be coming to the board for approval. And then, I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but if it's out of our norm, which the other paragraphs are kind of our normal, like pre-approved, what we've already said, and this is approval through this fund, separate from the corresponding conference or training, are the property of the school district and shall be cataloged in a school board resource library. And again, here, after use or when the board member separates from service, I'd like to get rid of the when separates from service too, and move that up, just so that it's, becomes available a little quicker to everybody through the resource of the library. So I guess that would be my minor tweak to it, would be to just add the purchase part from the board. Mr. Green?
Okay, so basically, part one, when we talked about in the policy committee, we were gonna leave it up to the superintendent, so you're suggesting this way, we're taking it out of any superintendent's hands, and we're making that decision of what's approved. correct?
Right. I don't want the superintendent to be in a position where they have to guess if it's appropriate or not appropriate. It just comes right to the board for approval. We approve it, gets purchased, becomes part of the board resource library, and then we all have use for it to,
And then your second
there.
part, if a board member is using this resource, we wanna put it back in the resource library before they separate from service, do we wanna put a time frame on it? I mean, what's the time frame? I might be saying I'm reading it because I'm dumb, just me, because everybody knows I am, and it takes me like 3 years to read it. You know what I mean? I mean, you're saying separate from service, but when, are we gonna put a stipulation or a parameter on when it has to be returned?
well, some of us have been up here for years, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah, we know.
put me in that example, right? If I bought something and I thought it was a great resource and everybody else wanted to use it, I've been here 7 years. You'd have to wait, and you gotta wait 6 more.
I'm not,
have to wait.
I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying is.
Agreeing with you,
so
but I'm
what
just saying,
timeframe- so what
are we
timeframe
putting
do
a
we put
time,
on?
we should put a time frame on when that has to be returned to the
Yeah,
board.
yeah,
That's what
I
I'm
mean,
saying.
almost like a library, you wanna check it out
Right.
for 90 days, and,
And then maybe if somebody,
yeah, if somebody needs it, then we know it's there.
I vote for Mr. Sage to be the librarian.
Right. I second.
Dr. Green can be.
Right, Dr. Green can be the
Gave me a
librarian.
pay raise. I'm calling Southfield Schools, telling them they owe me a whole lot of money.
Yeah, I think that's good language to
Yeah,
to
I'm
add.
okay
And I
with it.
appreciate the policy committee's
Well,
work
how
on this.
about within the fiscal year? Like within the,
That's
each
fine.
fiscal year?
To
That
return
way,
the
when we
power.
have an organizational meeting, we can.
Bring the
establish-
materials back.
Right.
So you have it for
right.
the point of the, yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
fine.
think we have to have a time, because like you
Just be,
said.
Right.
like, so it
right.
gets returned in January,
Right.
basically?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's
'cause like,
fine.
That's what I was saying, is that I agree with what you said, but I think we had to put a time frame on it. so-
Right.
I mean, by that time, I'm
That
gonna
way you
lose
can
it.
hurry up.
And it's
You can
still,
hurry up
and it's still
read.
there if if somebody who
Right.
needs to use it again, it's still there, it's still
Okay.
there for everybody.
Yeah, I'm okay with both of those.
Okay.
So with the first one, on the sentence where it says other school board training, you can also add training and materials. So it's all one sentence.
Yeah.
There you go.
Either way
Okay.
would be fine for me.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Because this is kind of like our first reading on this, right?
Yeah, we're
This
not
is our
voting
first-
on this
Yeah.
tonight.
Our
This
first
is
look
just,
through.
we're hashing through this to retweak it, okay?
Right. So after it gets tweaked back up, then it comes back to us and it'll show up as an action item, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Cool.
Any other questions or concerns or comments on it? Okay. A great work by the policy committee. I really appreciate your guys' time. I'm sure this was no easy feat to just get done. It looks simple, but it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. That completes the presentation we had. So the next is citizens' comments. Are there any members who'd like to speak tonight? Okay. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll go ahead and close public comment, and we're on to the superintendent's update.
Thank you. This week is a big week for students. We have all of our assessments, the required assessments coming forward this week, and so we appreciate all the flexibility of our families as our students are focusing on showing what they've learned and what they know. And but we do have a huge highlight, which is our robotics team. And we are so excited to talk about the work that they've done. It was a nail biter, I'll tell you, this weekend, because